Anime fans truly are starting off the new year with a boom. With over 50 brand new shows just waiting around the corner to suck up all of your time, you won't even notice a good chunk of them got pushed back. And on top of all of that, we still have series from last season that are still airing now. I haven't seen my family since the beginning of the new year. With so many new shows, I had to be a bit more selective this time around. In order for me to continue basic human functions, I implemented the 3-episode rule, which quickly turned into the half-a-season rule. If a show didn't catch my attention by a certain amount of episodes, I wasn't going to force myself to watch it. I'll just slide on over to the next one. Even with this rule in place though, I still had a flooded watch list! We just gotta get right into it this time around. For the most part, I'll try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but if I need to talk specifics, I'll let you know what timestamp to skip to. So let's just start talking about some anime. Worst anime. I find that the more videos I make, the more anime I'm starting to drop. A lot of these shows were truly the definition of mid. Chilling in My 30s, Giant Beast of Ours, and Unite Up seem alright, but there wasn't really anything that really drove me to stick around. Spy Classroom and The Fire Hunter might be some of the biggest disappointments of the season for me. Both have an interesting premise that they never really tap into, and both are really dragged down by their animation. Spy Classroom especially disappoints in the animation department. I'm always down to see some really cool spy action, but the animators certainly did not want me to see it. Any action scene is either cut short or cut away from. And just when you think the show's going somewhere, you get slapped with a group of incredibly dragging flashback episodes that completely stop any momentum the story had going for it. But man, if you just look at this nomination list, you already know. How could I pretend to nominate anything else? My Life as Inukai-san's Dog. As soon as this was announced, I think everyone knew exactly where this belonged. Okay, quick summary, I guess. One day, ordinary Joe wakes up as a dog. He has no idea where he is or what happened to him. Out of nowhere, his crush adopts him and now he's living the dream of every degenerate out there. Is this a new fetish or something? Ever since Makima dropped, I've seen more and more barking comments under waifu post. I don't know how to feel about this.
Now hold on, Josh. I think you're being too harsh on this one.
Too harsh? Sora! What the fuck?
Come on, at least watch the first couple of episodes first before you judge it.
Okay, fine. Have it your way.
Yes, Josh, join us. Join the dark side.
Ugh, what's this feeling? What's happening to me? What the? God damn it, Sora, of course you'd be into this shit. Is there even anything good I can say about this show? At least every episode's around 12 minutes long, so you're not suffering for long. As a very happy dog owner myself, this show was so foul on so many levels. Best boy. Wait a minute, why is my list so long?
Ness, what did you do my list?
Well, I noticed that your list was looking a little empty, so I decided to fill it out for you.
Most of these guys are from the same show!
So, how can you expect me to choose just one of my babies?
Isn't this one a slave?
That just means he'll be loyal to me.
Come on, Ness. Isn't this one pushing it a bit too far?
The hairier the better.
Q-chan de ii yo.
Really? This guy?
I have my reasons.
And stay out!
Okay, where were we? Oh yeah. This season was absolutely stacked with personality when it came to the boys. We got shy guys, we have cool guys, we have depressed guys, and we have sweet guys. If you like them a little older, I've got the wizard for you. Junichiro no Mane might have broken the record for how dense a rom-com protagonist can get, but they're good boys at heart. Daddy Tatsu makes his long-awaited return in season 2 of The Way of the House Husband, and it's like he never left. Some of these nominees are better picks for best protagonist, so be prepared to see them again later. But for now, I'd like to reward best boy too. Himuro, the ice guy and his cool female colleague. This show and this guy are just too damn sweet. Himuro is just your typical run-of-the-mill office worker who starts blasting the AC whenever he gets nervous. He's a genuinely caring guy, and watching him fumble around the office as he does his best not to freeze his coffee or colleagues is simply adorable. The little snowman he makes when he's happy also help him score a lot of bonus points here. Best girl.
Yo, Jun. 一緒に帰ろうぜ。
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm! What's the procedure, everyone? Everybody calm down!
Tubi's long-awaited anime adaptation has finally reached our eyes, and now, after never playing the games, after years of hearing how the Great Waifu Wars will finally come to an end once she gets animated, I can finally say, with great confidence, that I don't get it. But hey, at least the plot's great. Not to cut Tubi short here, but she's not the only woman that can kick ass this season. From your typical high school setting to Truck-kun's afterlife, we were in no shortage of women that will actually just kill me. Something might have awakened in me this time around, cause god damn! Not into the fantasy setting? Well then, maybe you can find your seasonal best girl in something like the Ice Guy or the Angel Next Door, with two incredibly sweet characters. Or maybe you've had enough of all this wholesome lovey-dovey stuff and more into the teasing type. Whatever your flavor, this season definitely had a surplus of characters to fit your needs. This award definitely bounced down quite a bit, and it really came down to 3 main candidates, and I definitely think you'll probably see a pattern here. Miharu Shina, the Angel Next Door, spoils me rotten. It was a toss-up between Fuyutsuki and Miharu for the longest time. If Kubo didn't get delayed, she might have had a chance here, but I'm not totally sure on that one. Surprisingly, I actually had Fuyutsuki as the winner here. That was until I saw episode 10 of The Angel Next Door. Slight spoilers here, so if you want to go in completely blind, I recommend you go over to the Isekai section of this video, but it's nothing too serious. Miharu has had an incredibly tough life compared to others around her age. Amane knows this, and when something from his past comes up, he doesn't want to drag her down with him. So he clams up, hoping to deal with it himself. And by that, I mean the classic guy term for doing absolutely nothing about it. Miharu sees that something is bothering him, and she asks him to tell her about it. Even though it's very obvious that it's bothering him, Amane shrugs it off. That's when this scene happens.
あなたの悲しみはあなたしか持ち得ないものであり、私の悲しみと比較できるものではないです。あなたを支えることです。
That is such a sweet answer. I don't know if it's because of a certain cinematic universe that's been absolutely tanking lately, but this genuine showing of basic human empathy really made me appreciate the character so much more than I already was. I think the writers of Phase 4 would really be surprised at how much acting like a normal human being would endear their characters to their audiences. But moving on from one dumpster fire to another, it's time for Best Isekai and Fantasy.
Why the fuck are there so many isekais this season?
I don't remember where I heard this, but I was told once that January was the month that Hollywood releases all their garbage movies. Well, it looks like Japan took note of that because they decided to release 19 different isekais in January. And that's just what I watched. For reference, that's about as many anime that I talked about in my first seasonal award video. From pacing issues to uninteresting plots, to stories that had potential but went nowhere, to the most generic anime you've already seen, the isekai genre found itself plagued with a ton of problems this time around. I mean, come on, they weren't even trying with these. Look at them, they're exactly the same. Reborn to Master the Blade, from Hero King to Extraordinary Squire, has a fun concept of an old king getting a second chance at life without the responsibility of taking care of his kingdom. The only catch is he turns into one of the baddest girls of the season. I think the show has some really good potential, but it begins to start dragging around the middle chunk of the season, and the pace doesn't really pick up again. Hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, just don't make it too obvious. We've reached the infamous farming arc. Now, I don't know about you, but after season 1, I think we all need some time to cool down before. God damn! I didn't know the lore of Stardew Valley was so scary! What happened to my nice, wholesome show about farming? Oh, there it is. And if you don't like the process of growing food, we've got the definition of food porn a couple aisles to the right. I've gotta say, of all of these, Revenger has gotta be the most disappointing of the bunch. Maybe I was going in with my expectations too high, but it's alright. Marb has fooled an entire generation of female weebs to think furries are a-okay as long as they've got those luscious red locks.
Hey, what are you doing?
By using my bodily fluids as a catalyst, I can channel my magical power and heals you much faster.
So, what type of adventure would you like to be?
Healer.
Are you sure? There are plenty of others.
Healer. Handyman Saito and saving 80,000 gold were a fun watch and were surprisingly a lot better than I thought they would be. There were honestly way too many isekais to keep up with this time around, and they completely oversaturated the market here. But before I get too far into it, I think it's time to reveal our first winner. Best Fantasy. Vinland Saga. Okay, I know that this might have been the obvious pick.
Well, Josh, this isn't even tagged with fantasy, so what the hell?
I don't care what the tags say, it's my list. To me, this is a historical fantasy. Vinland Saga Season 1 was an incredible journey of a kid whose sole purpose was seeking revenge. The season ended on such an incredibly high note that it was hard to think about where the series could go next. Things were building up in an incredibly volatile powder keg for one of the most potentially hyped continuations ever. So instead of setting it off, Makoto Yukimaru decided to give us one of the most incredibly emotional character arcs we could have ever bore witness to. Vinland Saga decided to scale down. The crazy world building and the war are still there, but they aren't the main focus of this season's story. A majority of the episodes follow Thorfinn and ask the question, what happens to a person whose sole purpose is revenge once that purpose is gone? Thorfinn went from an angry child who was so lasered focused on getting revenge for his father, that when that vengeance was stolen from him, he's forced to realize just how empty his life has become. His dad was a pacifist, but Thorfinn never truly understood what he had to say until it was too late. Now, Thorfinn's learned the exact lesson that his father did, and that life isn't just about fighting. He needs to find out who he is in this incredibly savage world. I've seen some people complain that this season is boring or how the writer butchered Thorfinn's character, but that's not the case at all here. This was the natural step for Thorfinn to take, and I'm glad to see the series slow down a bit to really flesh out Thorfinn's character here. Now I think it's time to bring out the next winner of this bracket. Best Isekai. Farming life in another world. Hear me out! Oh shit, I'm gonna be saying that a lot in this video, aren't I? I feel like Japan decided to make this one personal for giving last season's farming show the worst anime award. But color me impressed. It turns out I ended up getting what I asked for. I really hope I legally find $1 million in my bank account tomorrow. This might have been my comfort anime of the season. Was it perfect? No. But there was something really calming about it that I ended up tuning in every week to watch some guy plant a couple of tomatoes. Hiraku lived a terrible life of illness and poverty in Japan. When he dies, he's given a second chance to live his dream life any way he sees fit. So naturally, he becomes a farmer. Slowly we get to see how his little hole in a tree evolves into a little village. There's nothing extremely incredible about this show, but I really enjoyed every episode. This isn't a serious action fantasy. It's incredibly stress relieving and it's just a really chill time every episode.
親たちもすぐに慣れて田植えは順調に進んだ
一緒に入ればいいじゃない
Oh yeah, I love farming. Best romance and slice of life.
Oh no, I've got to get out of here.
Wait, Sora Season 2 is actually really wholesome this time, I swear! While thankfully much less than the Isekai bracket, the romance this season was actually fairly well rounded. We got a fair taste of wholesome to go along with the more typical high school rom-coms this time around. The Ice Guy and his cool female colleague is Japan's latest attempt to trick people into believing that their dream job is to become an office worker. It might be paperwork galore, but goddamn isn't finding true love the sweetest thing ever.
致し方ないので許してくださいね
Whoa there, buddy. This is usually where I make a haha, that's so relatable joke, but god Damn, bro! Now, me personally, I could never. Tomo-chan is a girl, The Angel Next Door spoils me rotten, and Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible were all on my plan to read list, so this was a really nice sampler to see what I'll be getting into. The slice of life shows also smacked fairly hard this season too, with a couple surprise shows that I wasn't really expecting. If you enjoyed the first season of The Way of the House Husband, then you're gonna love season 2. The sports genre is branching out from hitting balls to hitting people in the judo-inspired Ippon again, and Kyoto Animation hit another bullseye with Tsunade season 2. Of all the genre brackets, I'd say that the winners here were the hardest to choose from, with a couple of obvious choices and some surprises to go with them. Best Slice of Life. Onimai. I am your sister now. Hear me out! Oh boy. So, for those of you who may not know what this is, here's a little plot synopsis. Basically, we have your standard pre-Isekai protagonist. He's in his late teens to early 20s. No maidens, no friends, no social life. Parents don't live at home, and he stays home all day playing video games. So just picture me. The only person who would miss them would be their slightly younger sister, Miheri, who is much more successful than him in every aspect. She's the main breadwinner of the house and she's a scientist. Ooh. Prime for Chuck-kun, all Miharu has to do is get off his ass for 3 seconds to touch some grass and he'll be living his best life. But as every League of Legends player knows, the act of touching grass is nigh impossible. Too late to save him, Chuck-kun takes yet another L here when Miheri tests out one of her new experiments on her brother. And Miharu wakes up to find himself as a 12-year-old-ish girl. Yeah, I bet the reaction you're having is the same one I had when I first watched the episode. I really didn't know what to think about this anime other than the fact that the art style is absolutely beautiful. But what else could you expect from the studio that brought us Mushoku Tensei? Understatement of the video? This show is weird. But the more I watched, the more into it I got. The building relationship between siblings is incredibly wholesome, and watching as Miharu grows out of their shell is incredibly satisfying. And to top it all off, the show is genuinely funny, and it always gets a laugh out of me somehow with every episode. And now, it's time to move on to Best Romance. The Angel Next Door spoils me rotten. And you might be surprised to know that this wasn't as one-sided as you probably thought. I don't know how anime makes office life seem so interesting without Michael Scott, but the ice guy and his cool female colleague constantly kept me coming back. If Nagatoro was too much for you, then perhaps our second teaser would do it for you. Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible suffered from all of the delays that happened this season, but it was so incredibly wholesome that I ended up buying the manga for this one. And since the manga is so short, you can already see the progression between the main couple. But The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten is such a beautiful look into the lives of our two love interests. They fully support each other in what they do, and they genuinely help the other to become a better person.
遠慮なくダメにして差し上げますので、あまねくんは安心してダメになってくださいね。
The kindness, the cordiality, the esteem. It's so poignant!
God damn it, where's my insulin pen? This is definitely a slow burn romance. Amani and Sheena have an incredible chemistry and they bounce off of each other really well. This show quickly gets you invested in their relationship. While I've mentioned quite a few shows this season are comfort shows, this is definitely the definition of comfort. It's pure, it's wholesome, and it'll get your stone cold heart warmed up in seconds. But now, how about we start talking about some things that'll get your heart pumping? Best action. Out of all of the other genres this season, I feel like best action is sorely lacking. Maybe I was a bit too harsh there. Along with Vinland Saga, MAPPA finally decided to drop Attack on Titan, the final season, Part 3, Division 9, Subsection F, 3rd quarter, episodes 69B to 70 and a half. God, and I thought some of these other titles were long. Nier Automata and Trigun find themselves being brought back in a new medium, with one going from video game to animation and the other going from 2D to 3D. Yeah, you 3D haters have been real quiet since this one dropped. Buddy Daddies is an interesting little show. While it's more consistent than Spy Family, it actually uses the entire cast. So far, I can't say that it's reached the highs that Spy Family has had. Bungo Stray Dogs Season 4 has also come out, and I've gotta say that I am enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. There's elements that I like about each season, but it's never really fully grabbed my attention. But Season 4 brings everything together to create a really tight and engaging story. But was all of this enough for Bungo to get the dub? Best Action. Trigun Stampede. For you 3D haters throwing your phones in a fit of rage right now, just look at this. Look how good this show looks. Trigun Stampede took me for a complete surprise. As someone who hasn't seen the original, I went into this completely blind. Nier might have been one of the more hyped up choices of the two, but being totally real here, watching the show made me want to play the game more. So I decided to put the show on hold until, well, I played the game. But Trigun is a completely new and original experience for me. The scene is as alive as the characters. Even though this wasn't an especially stacked season for action, Trigun Stampede trampled over the competition. Best ED. Wait a minute, I didn't watch you guys this season. The ending and opening song categories are a good place for shows that I wasn't able to watch to get some limelight. The visuals and the story for the Ice Blade Sorcerer Shall Rule the World might be below average, and trust me, they really don't do anything with the visuals for their ED. But Maya Loud's Hailer goes so hard. Tokyo Revengers gives us another banger. It Might Be Painful But I Still Love You is so good. I'm actively reconsidering picking up the show again. Studio Bind decided to flex their entire animation budget on Onimai's ED. Not only is this song infectious, but the visuals are absolutely fantastic and animated to perfection. You're doing yourself a real disservice if you're not watching this in anything less than 4K and 60 frames per second. Meichan's Squad from High Card is the definition of just going out on a road trip with your friends. The best part of this ED is when the song ends and everyone acts like nothing happened. The Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible and Ice Sky EDs have some really chill vibes to them, with Kubo standing out just a little bit more thanks to their paint wash art style. I don't know what it is about it, but for some reason Kubo's ED really reminds me a lot of the second ending for Quintessential Quintuplets. I really can't pin down the reason. The songs aren't alike at all, but there's just something about it. Nier, Trigun, and Vinland Saga deliver some incredibly thematic ending songs. Somehow the ending song for Nier was able to create the feeling of watching the finale of a long-running anime. These songs are so heavy to listen to. And let's not forget about the Sim coming back for Attack on Titan. With the context of the latest episode, Under the Tree goes tragically hard. In the past awards videos that I've done, the song that has the most thematic weight tends to be the winner. So does that pattern continue? Best ED, Vinland Saga Season 2, LMYK Without Love. Just reading the title puts a squeeze on the heart. Earlier I said that the second season of Vinland Saga was the study of Thorfinn's character. A broken man in a shattered world. A man who's tired of fighting, living in a world plagued with war. After the events of Season 1, Thorfinn's lost his identity. Or more accurately, he realized that he had no identity to begin with. Without Love perfectly captures how losing his father was the one bad thing that Thorfinn had no control over. But everything else, all the rage he held onto, every village he burned, every life he snuffed out, was due to his own actions. Add the visualizations of his horrendous PTSD, and man does Without Love strike deep. Best OP. I don't know why, but for some reason the most mid-anime this season got some of the most head-banging openings to go along with them. Reborn to Master the Blade, Revenger, the Ice Blade Sorcerer do not deserve to have the absolute bussy boppers that they have blasting every episode. Especially Ice Blade with such mid-visuals. And speaking of bussy boppers, oh my god, I can't get High Card and Angel Next Door out of my head. They are so infectious! Ow! Aimer proves once again that they simply do not miss with Nier. Onimai's OP is just as addicting as its ED with just as much animation budget flexing. Trigun and Vinland Saga deliver two incredibly thematic openings with Vinland having some heavy visuals. While the best ED was a toss-up between a handful of personal favorites, every single opening here is done to perfection for me. I was able to whittle them down to my top 3, but after that I just couldn't decide. I just want to lump all 9 songs here into one big award, but I can't do that. Can I? No, probably not. But you know what I can do though? My top 3 in no particular order. Best OP. Number 3, Trigun Stampede, Vai Baba, Tombi. Number 2, Vinland Saga, Anonymous, River. And number 1, Onimai, I Am Now Your Sister, Enako, Aiden Meltdown. Josh! Hear me out! Yeah, I'm not beating the allegations on this one. Alright, I know what you're thinking, but Aiden Meltdown is such a bop. I can't help myself. The visuals, no matter how such, really remind me of Nishijo for some reason. It's probably the energy behind them. But putting that aside, this song is so much fun. Studio Bind went all in with the fluidity of the animation here. Not a single frame is boring to watch, and I can't for the life of me stop myself from bopping along every time I watch it. Keep in mind that I only showed these in particular order just for the suspense. Trigun's song is one of the most unique sounding I've heard in a while. Once you hear it, you know immediately what you're in for. It sets the tone of the show so perfectly, and it just feels like Tombi was made for the show. The symbolism for River makes so much more sense once you've gotten through the first 10 episodes of Vinland Saga. All 3 of these openings deserve some love at number 1, and I'll use my seasonal cheat to grant it to them. Best Score. Okay, I see we have a couple heavy hitters here already. Yukata Yamada, Hideyuki Sawano, and Kota Yamamoto all returned for Vinland Saga and Attack on Titan. If you enjoyed the soundtrack from their previous seasons, then you will love these, especially Vinland Saga's. Trigun Stampede and Kind of the Great Snow both give us incredibly atmospheric music that goes incredible with the show, especially Tatsuya Kato's Western approach for Trigun's soundtrack. And let's not even single out A Million Knives. Spy Clasher might have been mid, but Yoshiki Fujisawa's spy music makes the episodes a bit more enjoyable. It gives off a classic yet epic James Bond type of vibe. And of course, how can I not talk about Nier? Now I'm not sure if the soundtrack is taken from the game and plugged into the anime, or if the music is inspired by the game, but it just sounds like I'm listening to an incredible video game soundtrack. But which of these edged out all the others? Was it the new kids on the block, or the OGs? Best Original Soundtrack. Kaina of the Great Snow Sea, Kota Yamamoto, Misaki Imuse, and Hideyuki Sawano. When I was writing this list, I was thinking, oh, Kaina's an easy win. Those composers did such a great job. Then I do the research and see who composed it, and boom! Surprise Sawano drop. But that's not to take away from Koto and Misaki's work here. Kaina's score is an incredibly beautiful work of art that plays incredibly well into the epic fantasy vibe of the show. It's full of wonder, mystery, and excitement, enhancing the world around it. When first looking at this show, you really don't expect it to have such a banger soundtrack, but oh my god, this is a good contender for Best OST of the year right here. Best Antagonist. Well, that's a fairly accurate portrayal of siblings. The GOAT returns, spouting some of the coldest lines this season had to offer. Handyman Saito gave us a surprisingly emotionally investing ninja, and Miri might not actually be a villain per se, but my god, she is definitely the biggest menace from this list by far. Forget the rumbling, this little girl is a walking typhoon by god! Everywhere she goes is an absolute disaster. NATO fears her, the EU doesn't know what to do with her. Even if you put a can of oil next to her, America doesn't want the smoke her fire brings. But of course, there's one antagonist this season that absolutely deserves this reward. Knives, Trigun Stampede. Speaking of intimidating, I don't know how Vash is supposed to beat this guy. As a child, this little shit brought the remains of humanity to their knees with a smile on his face. Every time he's on screen, you can feel the tension just ramping up. This guy is so extra that when we see him for the first time in the present, he's rolling up playing his own freaking boss music just to troll his brother. Oh wait, that last part is pretty standard for siblings too. Knives is hands down one of the coldest villains out there and is the definition of no fucks given when it comes to humanity. What I do enjoy about him though is the duality he has with Vash. Knives might want to burn the human race down, but he does care for his brother, and I can respect that. He's definitely my favorite villain of the season, and he might be one of the best of the year. Best Protagonist. I'm not gonna lie to you here, not a lot of these guys really stand out to me. Don't get me wrong, characters like Saito and Vash are fun to watch on screen, but comparing them to the winners and the runner-ups from the previous seasons, it does kind of feel like something's off here. Thorfinn is an interesting choice here. He's not really an active protagonist this time around. The main conflict from Vinland Saga is happening very far away from him, but he's got his own demons to face in more subtle ways. Inglis falls into the Saito and Vash grouping of characters. She might be a baddie, but there's not too much more going on with her character than that. And then we have Anisphia, a fairly complex protagonist that has a lot of the traits that made characters like Chisato beloved. After typing all this out, I think I have a better understanding of who should be the one to come out on top here, so let's take a look behind those curtains. Thorfinn, Vinland Saga. Thorfinn might be the furthest from the action, but the stakes have never been higher for him. The whole point of his character this season is being a passive protagonist. He's gotten to the point where he no longer cares what happens to him, as long as the nightmares end at whatever the cost. He's not fighting a physical battle, he's fighting the battle for his very soul. There is so much wrong with Thorfinn, he doesn't even know where to begin. Seeing him take those first steps towards freeing himself from his past, taking the first grip of freedom, fighting for himself, something he hasn't done since he was just a kid, it's so powerful. Vash was a fairly close second here, but the development Thorfinn has gone through this season pushed him to be the best of the best for himself and this award. Most underrated. It's pretty accurate to say that my jaw was on the floor when I saw who wasn't in the top 20. In the past couple of videos I've done, as long as you weren't in the top 10, you qualified to be in this segment. But with the sheer amount of anime that dropped this season, there were simply way too many shows that didn't make it into the top 10. But even pushing the most underrated to the top 20, oh my god! Some of the best shows needed some real love this season. The fact that Trigun isn't even close to making to the top 10 astounds me. Onima is a little more understandable. The concept is one of the wildest of the past year, and anytime I talk about it to anyone, I always get the strangest and most valid responses. This series is almost impossible to recommend without being put on a list. But even with word of mouth being put against it, I'm surprised to see that it pretty much averaged out in the high 20s. Do I believe it deserved better? Yeah, but hey, it barely qualified to make it into this list, so I think that's a win on its own. Alright, now we're getting to the more niche ones that need a little more explaining. Kaina is a fairly standard adventure series with some pretty good sci-fi concept introduced into it. The world building is there, but it definitely feels like a deeper exploration is going to be saved for season 2. Ippon again is your seasonal moe. As per usual, when it comes to sports anime, I have no idea how accurate the show is to the real thing, but according to some very passionate comments, it seems that the show is doing a pretty good job at bringing judo to the world of anime. And High Card is another show with an interesting concept with the whole card playing angle. There are some here that I already know aren't going to make the final cut, but that final decision is pretty interesting to make. Most underrated. Trigun Stampede. Maybe it's the fact that it's completely done in 3D animation, but for some reason, it looks like people just aren't watching this masterpiece. If what I said in Best Action and Best Antagonist hasn't convinced you, then I don't know what will. It was a huge risk to make this entire show in 3D animation, but you can tell with every single frame that there was so much love and attention put into this show. This is a tragic tale between two brothers with incredibly fluid animation. Every character stands out on their own 2 feet with incredibly strong and unique personalities. After watching the first episode, you would have understood immediately that this show would not have worked in the traditional 2D animation style. I can't go on too much about the story because of spoilers, but you are doing yourself a disservice if you are not watching Trigun Stampede this season. Other than Onimai, this is the only show on the most underrated list that I didn't have any problems or nitpicks with. I'm just so glad that season 2 is confirmed because this show deserves to have its story finished. Anime of the season. Alright, this is gonna be interesting. In the last video, I proclaimed that it was a good thing that there wasn't a Cyberpunk or Mob Psycho tier show in this season. But what I failed to realize in that statement is that it makes choosing the best anime that much harder. Every show here definitely deserves to be nominated and win best anime for their own reasons. Well, maybe not these two, but I like them so much that I thought I'd just give them a shout out here. These final 4 are the 4 that I enjoyed the most out of the season. Each one is incredibly different from the other and are the best for their own unique reasons. Trying to pick my favorite amongst them was surprisingly a lot harder than I thought it would be. When making the rough draft of this list, I thought I had an easy winner here, but now that I'm writing this, I'm finding that I had a lot more passion for one show that I didn't quite expect. Anime of the season. Onimai, I'm now your sister.
FBI, open up!
Yep, just take me away at this point. Listen, I'm as shocked as you are, especially with Vinland Saga and Trigun up here, but for some reason, Onimai really caught my attention. Before anything else, I was incredibly apprehensive to start watching this. I thought it was going to be your standard gender swap trope with old and worn out cliches and unfunny gags filled to the brim with fan service. But other than that last part, this show's incredibly unique. Going into episode 1, the first thing that pops out at you is the absolutely gorgeous art style. Studio Bind knew that they had to make the series stand out visually to clickbait people into giving it a chance, and oh my god, it's absolutely beautiful to look at. But outside of the visuals, this show is incredibly wholesome, which isn't something I expected at all going into it. As stated earlier, Mahito is your standard isekai protagonist with nothing going on in his life. Due to his inability to excel in anything while his sister excels in science, Mahito closes himself off to the world. But his younger sister genuinely worries about him. And after years of trying to convince him to take a shower, she decides to give him a second chance. By turning him into a middle school girl against his will and knowledge. Were there better ways to go about this? Yeah, probably, but this premise allows for one hell of a character arc. Watching Mahito get used to their new life as a girl is both wholesome to watch and incredibly funny. I think of all the gender benders I've seen, this one has the most fun with the genre. For the most part, this is a slice of life anime, but the redeveloping relationship that the Yoyama siblings built throughout it was the highlight of the show. Watching Mahito begin to care and appreciate his younger older sister and seeing Mihire's heartfelt reaction to her brother finally finding some form of happiness was incredibly satisfying and, oddly enough, really pulled at the heartstrings. That's not to dismiss the blatant amount of fanservice to be found in this show. Now, I'm not one to be typically bothered by fanservice scenes, but yeah, I can definitely see how this can make anyone uncomfortable. But if you want to have a genuine laugh with a surprisingly good relationship between siblings, then I can't recommend Onimai more. Were Vinland Saga and Trigun Stampede better shows? Absolutely. But somehow, Onimai was able to win over my cold, dead heart. To be honest here, this season's kind of been underwhelming when compared to the last year of anime we've been absolutely spoiled with. Were there some bangers? You bet your ass there were. But there were also a ton of mediocre or garbage shows that you had to filter through in order to find those diamonds. There are a lot of sequels airing along with the shows that leaked over from last season. The Vigilante arc from My Hero Academia has been a blast to watch through, and I can't wait to binge through the rest of Blue Lock. Play It Cool Guys also continued to be a complete vibe. The top 10 shows really surprised me this time around. Of course the big shows made it in, but I wasn't expecting Isekai to be so popular. And even just below them, seeing Campfire Cooking and Farming Life in Another World so close to breaking in was completely unexpected. If you had to watch anything from this season, this is what I'd recommend. Trigun stampedes itself into the number 1 slot. For those of you who haven't seen it, I beg you, watch it. The CG animation might be a hurdle for some of you, but Studio Orange plays it to its maximum strengths. It's an incredibly intriguing story in a very dangerous world with a fun batch of characters. At number 2, we have Vinland Saga Season 2. If you haven't seen Vinland Saga Season 1, then I highly recommend you do. Season 2 takes the series in a wildly different direction, but it's just as deep as the first season. You can't go wrong with a little romance in your life, so why not overdose on The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten? This was definitely the sweetest show to air this season, and every episode made me feel so good inside. At number 4, we have our first isekai, and it's not Farming Life in Another World. While I do love that show, I think I'd recommend Handyman Saito before it. While it may not have won any awards, Handyman Saito was such an incredibly fun series to watch through, and the episodes went by in a snap. It just feels like a fun time with the homies. No matter what, I never found myself bored watching it. And at number 5, Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible sneaks itself in. If the show was able to air in completion, I have no doubt it'd be higher on my list, but I can't deny how much I genuinely enjoyed seeing these two tease each other. I can't wait for the next batch of episodes, and I can't promise myself that I'm going to stay away from that manga. The wild card for the season will be Onimai. The reason this isn't number 1 on the list is because I know it's not for everyone. If you're willing to give the show a chance, I promise you will be entertained. There were also a lot of other bangers this season that I wasn't able to talk about. If you're in need of more anime to binge, then I recommend The Way of the House Husband Season 2, The Ice Guy and His Cool Female Colleague, Farming Life in Another World, Nagatoro Season 2, and Campfire Cooking. And yeah, Attack on Titan is obviously a given here. I think that these are all the best shows to come out this season. What were your favorite animes this season? I highly doubt we have the same list here. Remember to like and subscribe because it looks like we're going to be getting a ton of heavy hitters this spring, so be sure to stick around for the next award video. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our patrons. Thank you so much to Mr. Mophead, Jason S., Momoko, Carlos Guzman, and Matthew Garcia for supporting us over on our Patreon. If you want to have a shout out or customized reading in the next scripted video, follow us on Patreon in the description below. Thank you all so very much for watching. I'll be sure to see you in the next one, whether that be a scripted video, a reaction, or a stream. Remember to keep watching anime. And bye bye!